I still think other than the Indiana Fever, the Los Angeles Sparks are the biggest winners in the WNBA free agency period. And I'm talking about this because Cameron Brink talked about Kelsey Plum coming to the team and how, they needed a lead guard like Plum and how she's going to be great for the squad. And I've said this before. Yes, they surrendered the number 2 pick in the draft. But what is the likelihood that the number 2 pick in the draft gives them what Kelsey Plum is going to give them for the remainder of her career? It's very small. Plum is a proven all-star. Plum will now get a bigger share of the offense, and maybe her best years of her career are still ahead of her. Not to mention, she's going to be a star in that market in Los Angeles and fits alongside the existing core in Hamby, Brink, and Jackson. So for all those reasons, I think the Sparks acquiring Kelsey Plum was a big win. But here's what Cameron Brink actually had to say about it. I'll link her full podcast in the description. She's got a new podcast, Straight to Cam is the title of it. I think I used it in the thumbnail here in regards to this specific topic. But here is what she said. And she's joined by Sydel Curry-Lee, Steph Curry's sister, and obviously her good friend.
We got a new teammate,
KP, my girl.
I can't wait to see that chemistry.
She's so fun too. She's like a good time.
Damien texts me in all caps, exclamation points. Cam got a PG.
I got a PG. Thank goodness. Thank goodness, because we needed that. I met a lot of really established WNBA players from a young age while I was like still in high school because of my trainer, Susan. So I'm like very lucky to have kind of had a camaraderie with them going into the league. I was just super intimidated, and she would just do pistol squats with like the heaviest weight. She's a machine. Like her body is tea. Like she's so strong, and she's probably like one of the hardest workers I know. Susan would always be telling me like, we have to force her out of the gym.
She's pretty like serious on the court.
No, she's a dog on the court, and she will talk some shit.
Do you remember that clip with her that went viral where she was like eating the popcorn?
She's a goofball. I remember there's also this one clip. We were playing the Aces my rookie year. I fouled her, and then she like looked straight into the camera and she was like, that was a foul. I was like, no, it wasn't. No, it was not.
We love a player that can bring some personality on and off the court.
She's going to be so great. I'm really excited.
I mean, as she should be. That is a huge acquisition for the Sparks, and I think it changes their positioning immediately, right? Like of all the other moves, you could argue the Mercury because they reset, but I don't know how much different they are than they were last year, right? I think the Fever have gone from, up-and-coming team to bona fide contender, maybe the best team in the league. The other squads, I don't know how much the Sun obviously fell the most, probably, from one move to the next, given they lost their entire starting lineup. But other than Indiana, I think the Sparks probably jumped the most as far as where they were last year to where they were this year. And speaking of Indiana, Cam Brink did talk about Caitlin Clark a little bit on the podcast, specifically in relationship to the 3-point shooting decision. She revealed some of the advice she gives to Caitlin.
I think like it was cool to do it last year because it's always trying, like the goal is always to get more eyes on the W.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think it would have been good, like, if Caitlin went and did it too this year, but she already has so many eyes on her as it is.
She needs a break. I'm like texting her. I'm like, you need to take a vacation for 3 months.
Does she rest?
She likes to have a good time. Like,
she seems like the person that's like,
no, she's like a workout. She's definitely like always in the gym.
Yeah.
Always working her butt off. Yeah. But I'm like, you don't need to have the stress of that again because it's just going to be a whole debacle,
So you think it has to do with that rather than like her being like, no, like,
well, also it's like she's probably focusing on gearing up for the season. Like this does not benefit her. She doesn't need more publicity.
But it's
definitely doesn't need more publicity. Obviously, the stated reason from Clark and company was to have that happen first with the WNBA team. I like the vibe they got on their podcast, by the way. Shouts to them. Nice, relaxed. It seems like they enjoy each other's company and there was space for it to breathe. And it, there's going to be headlines that come from it because it's Cameron Brink talking, current WNBA player, a player who draws a lot of attention. I mean, there was another bit from the podcast that's not really my realm or my lane, but she's talking about how she's constantly linked as flirting to male athletes when she says like she had said something complimentary about Jimmy Butler or picked him in some social media game. And then people saying, oh, Cam Brink and Jimmy Butler. And she talked about the picture she took with Shohei Ohtani and how that had to be flirting, which is a little insight into her life. And I thought was an interesting bit, but looks like that podcast is off to a good start and will be off to a good start for them. But I think the Sparks, it's so funny to me because that move probably got the most initial backlash of any of the moves from people acting like they were idiots. And I really don't see that at all. I really don't see that at all, especially when you go and you look at the history of draft picks in the WNBA specifically. I mean, there are a lot of the Fever had Melissa Smith at number 2, and people couldn't wait to get rid of her. And that wasn't that long ago. That was the second pick in the draft. You get draft picks like that to hopefully land a Kelsey Plum, who was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And I understand she's not at the very beginning of her career, but she's not washed and chewed up either. I really do believe Plum could have her best years ahead of her in LA, simply due to the share of the offense she's going to, occupy versus in Las Vegas. She won, which is great for her because that takes that pressure off. She doesn't have this expectation or label of being dubbed a non-winner. She already is. But with Vegas, they had Jackie Young, they had Chelsea Gray, they had Asia Wilson, obviously. So Plum was part of that. In this case, she's going to be the lead orchestrator for the Sparks and the leader, I think, of the Sparks when it comes to being a veteran presence. So all of that is good for her. It's good for them because she's going to elevate the team. She was a piece that they needed. And it's good for the franchise and the organization because it adds a face. I mean, Brink was already, but now they got a lot of faces. Brink and Rickea Jackson and Kelsey Plum, notably. But I think Plum has that, recognizable aspect to her that will really thrive in Los Angeles. I bet you see her in a lot more endorsements and campaigns and all the like. And the team is going to use her to push tickets and everything else that they're looking to do. But all of a sudden, the Sparks, I think, become a relevant team in the WNBA, not only from a notoriety and attention standpoint, but on the basketball court as well, where I don't put them with the top tier, obviously, but I don't think they're bottom dwellers anymore. They're in the mix. And that's why I think, other than the Fever, they're the biggest winner in WNBA free agency up until this point, in my opinion.